Welcome everybody to our orientation covering Rotary acronyms. In this session, we're going to just talk a little bit about acronyms and why we use them and what they are in case you don't know. We'll go through some common acronyms used in Rotary and talk about some of the ways that you might help yourself figure them out in the future in case you forget any that we reviewed today or you encounter one you've not heard of before. Acronyms are shortened forms of a phrase, usually using the first letter of each word. Common one around here, CNY, which stands for Central New York. Sometimes they include the first couple letters. Another common one here is NIMO, which is Niagara Mohawk, our energy company. They're used usually to reduce word count and kind of simplify what's usually a long phrase. Also, if it's in terms of written word, it can make things less repetitive. And a lot of times there's acronyms that are specific to a brand's language. So think about maybe at work, there's certain acronyms that you use, just like in Rotary, there's acronyms that we use. They're not always a great thing because if you're using an acronym and speaking with somebody or communicating with someone that they don't know, it can make them feel excluded or left out. It's like if you were speaking another language that they don't speak. And obviously, if you're putting out information about Rotary or your club and you use an acronym without using it the right way, it can make for unclear communication for anyone reading that. But when used properly, they are helpful. They do, tighten things up a little bit, especially if you're doing something like a social media post where you want to be cautious with your word count. So the best way to approach using acronyms is to make sure you always introduce it before you use it or define it before you use it. So there's an example here on the screen for the World Health Organization or the WHO. And so you would write it and read it just like it's shown here. And then in all future instances, you can just say WHO because now everyone should know what that means. Whenever you're writing an acronym, you want to always use all caps. That way people recognize it's an acronym and not just a word or maybe a misspelled word. As you can see in this, again, in this example for the WHO, if you were to write that in lowercase, it would just look like the word who. And then finally, when you're using acronyms, think about who you're talking to or communicating with and in what context to make sure it's really appropriate. So let's talk about some common Rotary acronyms that hopefully you can remember and retain today. And then we'll get into some tricks to help you remember them. RI, this is probably the most commonly used one that's part of many acronyms in Rotary, and this stands for Rotary International. Rotary International is the term we use to describe our overarching organization, the global presence of Rotary. DG, this is a person's title in Rotary, and it stands for District Governor. This is the person who oversees our Rotary districts. AG, this is another title for someone, and this one is Assistant Governor. Here in Baldwinsville, currently, Steve Osborne is our Assistant Governor, and he works with the 6 clubs in our area. Now, PE, that might mean something else to you if you took gym class in elementary school, but in Rotary, PE stands for President-elect. And a president-elect is the person who's going to be president next. This one gets used a lot without explanation. So I wanted to include it in the list of ones we review together today because it's a great program, but if you don't know what these letters stand for, you don't know why you need to sign up for it. RLI stands for Rotary Leadership Institute. And this is a partner program for Rotary that provides leadership training for our members. It's an awesome program held in our district once each year, but available in neighboring districts if you'd like to attend more often. You take grade levels 1, 2, and 3, and then you graduate. And there are graduate classes for continuing education. It's just a really fun way to learn and meet new Rotarians. TRF. We still got an R in there, so you can probably guess what that stands for, but there's some new letters in there we haven't seen yet. So TRF stands for the Rotary Foundation. Sometimes this is called the Rotary International Foundation, but TRF is its acronym, and this is our charitable arm of Rotary where we raise money and use it to allocate for grants and projects that are done around the world and including here in Baldwinsville. PHF. This is an award that you receive in Rotary in recognition of a donation or contribution to the RI Foundation, or you receive it meritoriously as a recognition of your service to Rotary. And PHF stands for Paul Harris Fellow. And this award is named after our founder, Paul Harris. Here's where we get into some tricks to help you learn ways to figure out acronyms if you come across one you've never seen before, or you just forget because there's a lot of them to remember. So typically you'll see RI combined with other letters, and RI is generally going to refer to Rotary International. So here's a few examples. There's a Rotary International President, the RIP. Rotary International President-elect, RIPE. And remember, when we have elect at the end, that means they're next in line. RID is a Rotary International Director. It's someone who's on our Rotary International Board of Directors. DG is one we went over for District Governor, and there's a lot of variations of acronyms that involve DG, depending on if you're about to become one or you've already been one. That includes the District Governor-elect, the next person to be District Governor, District Governor nominee, the person who comes after them, and District Governor nominee designate, the person that comes after them. So we have a whole line of district governors in place in advance for continuity in our district leadership. And then we have past district governors, which is a very coveted title to have, and immediate past district governor, and that's the person who was last our district governor. Generally, again, when you see that R, it's going to stand for Rotary in that acronym. So be thinking about that when you're trying to decode one or remember what one means. So here are some examples. RC, Rotary Club. This is used, I think, in other places in the world more commonly than it is here in the North America. But if you see, Baldwinsville RC, that means Baldwinsville Rotary Club. RILA, or Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. That's a program for high school sophomores and juniors to learn about volunteer leadership. RAG, or RAG, it's a Rotary Action Group. Those are groups of people who are kind of experts or passionate about certain areas of Rotary service that come together to help with projects around the world. And then the last one, this one's a little more familiar maybe, Rotary Youth Exchange, or sometimes just called YE for Youth Exchange. So if you're trying to guess, we've covered some of these letters and they have generally pretty common meaning. These aren't hard and fast rules, but they're pretty good letters to try and remember to get to the bottom of what an acronym might mean. R for Rotary, Y for youth. Now P, it could be Paul or president. It could also be public for public image. There's so many acronyms, we can't get into all of them because I don't want to overwhelm you. I'm trying to stick to some of the most common ones that you'll hear or see. And then also these last 3 bullet points to consider, think about if something's directional or locational, like district or club, north or south. If it's part of the past, present, or future, we talked about past district governors, past presidents, or future, if it has that elect at the end, that E, that means that they're the next person in line. And then think about, could this acronym be for a training program or a group or some other Rotary program to identify what those letters might mean. Here's some that maybe we could take a stab at working through. So P, we know P commonly stands for past or Paul or president. So this one comes out to be past president. Another coveted title to have in Rotary. How about DGN? We talked about this one when we went over all the variations of the DG acronym. And DGN stands for District Governor Nominee. And that's the person who's going to be district governor in 2 years. This one's a little tricky. It sounds like something that has to do with cats or dogs, or birds or reptiles or fish, whatever you like. But if we think about the letters that we've talked about already, P, president, E, elect, and then could it be an event for president-elects? Yes, it's the president-elect training seminar. This is held every March and it's put on by the district. Here in our area, we join with all of the upstate New York districts to have multi-district pets. And that's where our president-elects go to get trained before they become our club president. So if you hear someone talking about pets, it's not about their animals, it's about getting trained. So that's what we have to go over with your acronyms for this evening. And I just encourage you to, if you're writing any content for Rotary, if you're speaking about Rotary to a friend or family member or non-Rotarian especially, remember to introduce or define the acronym before you use it. And if you're writing it, make sure it's in all caps. And just think about your audience before you start speaking in acronyms, because you don't want people to feel left out or excluded in any way. And then I have on the list here, just for fun, these are just internet acronyms that you might see on social media and wonder, what does that mean? Sometimes you can figure it out from the context of the Facebook post or the tweet, but other times it's not quite as intuitive. So I thought I'd throw these up here for you to reference. And there'll be a link in the comments post down below on our YouTube channel here where you can download the slideshow so you can look at these again. And I thank you for joining me for this session on Rotary acronyms. I hope you learned something and I hope it will help you in the future if you encounter an acronym that you don't know. And now you'll be able to work through it and figure it out for yourself. Thanks, Rotarians.